Sky News. The full story first.
Coming up, gamblers from ethnic minority backgrounds are more likely to conceal addiction than white people. They're also more likely to suffer harm. We speak to one woman to find out why.
The world is on the brink. Wars, contentious elections, disinformation spreading at warp speed, and Donald Trump at the center of all of it. But what does it mean for the rest of us? Every week on Pod Save the World, Tommy Vitor and I cut through the noise to explain how global power is shifting. No jargon, no homework, just clear, honest conversations about what's happening and why it matters. From breaking news to long-simmering international conflicts, we dissect it all with critical analysis and some jokes that will surely embarrass our children one day. Tune in to Pod Save the World every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts, or catch it on YouTube.
It's commonly known that gambling can be addictive and therefore dangerous. Yet despite help being pretty readily available, in fact, research shows that people from ethnic minority backgrounds just aren't accessing it in the numbers you might expect. And that can lead to some pretty catastrophic outcomes.
I was numb at that point. I was just so done with trying to survive and just existing and having no life. I walked to the train station at 5 a.m. I was waiting for the first train to arrive, and I sat at the train station thinking about my daughter, thinking about the mistakes that I've made in the past, thinking that I didn't want to live this life anymore.
That's Kiki, a young black woman who found herself right on the edge because of gambling and drug addiction. Now, thankfully, she did manage to get the help she needed, and she's now helping others. I'll be speaking to her myself in just a few minutes. But let's start with Sky's Emma Birchley. Emma, you've been looking into this aspect of gambling. What put you onto the story? Because, look, I'll admit, it's not something I've even considered before.
I was watching Kiki speaking. She was at an event. She was talking about her lived experience of gambling harms. It's just something she's just starting to do now at this point in her recovery. And one thing that she said really piqued my interest, and that was, why is it that there was no one that looked like me or sounded like me when I went into recovery? And from that point, I started looking into it, and I looked at various research online that's been done over the years, which is out there, that research. That's what's so strange. It's out there. It shows that you are less likely to gamble if you're from an ethnic minority background, but you're more likely to suffer harm from that, so whether it's financial harm or whatever, and yet you're less likely to go and seek help. So what's going on? And all of these reports say people need to be told that there's support out there, because it is there for everyone.
Just establish that evidence base a little bit more for us, Emma. So they're less likely to gamble, more likely to suffer harms from gambling, less likely to seek any help.
Yeah, and I started thinking, well, how do we stand that up? Where are the figures that back that up? And I contacted GamCare. Now, they are the organisation that run the National Gambling Helpline. So they are dealing with people, contacting them all the time via all sorts of different means, whether it's on the phone or online or whatever, even WhatsApp. And actually, they had just done this piece of research with YouGov, spoken to more than 4,000 people. And what became clear from that is that if you're from an ethnic minority background, you're twice as likely to hide that you're gambling, and nearly 3 times as likely to suffer guilt from that gambling. So you can see that something doesn't match up, does it?
So what on earth is going on here? Do we have any idea what lies behind these statistics?
So that's where Kiki comes in. And she has been so honest, so open, I mean, just brilliant. And when I was interviewing her, what became clear was that she feels shame, stigma, cultural pressures. She talked about what goes on at home stays behind closed doors. You don't share your problems with other people. So for her, her approach was, it's very much about shame in the home and stigma. And then I spoke to an academic from Manchester University, and she said actually, in her mind, it's more than that. Their research says it goes beyond just shame and stigma. It's actually also about mistrust of statutory services, like going to the GP, whether it's for a physical health reason or a mental health reason. And so people maybe not coming forward, not having that trust in the services that are out there and the willingness to put themselves out there. And I suppose what needs to happen is, by doing stories like this, it is raising awareness, and by Kiki putting herself out there and saying, you know, there are gambling addicts that look like me, then people might be more inclined to come forward. I mean, what is so interesting is she said I thought a gambling addict was an old white bloke in the bookies, having a pint, betting. Didn't think it was someone like her. She Googled it, looked online, said, oh, you know, these are people losing thousands and thousands of pounds, remortgaging their home. That wasn't her. It was benefits, borrowing from friends, 10 and 20p spins on the online slot. So we're talking small amounts, but it gripped her, completely gripped her and got her into debt.
You've been speaking to those who are on the other end of this equation, those who are helping out those with gambling addictions, and their experience suggests that there is a distinct lack of uptake of these services from ethnic minority backgrounds.
What was so interesting is that 3 years ago, I met someone called Lisa Walker, really inspirational character, I think. She was a serious gambling addict. She won £127,000 playing poker. She lost it all and so much more, ended up homeless with her 10 and 11-year-old children. Now, 3 years ago, I spoke to her and she was telling me about the fact that she had gone into recovery. There were 35 men in the room, one other woman. Where were all the women? And from that, set up a group called New Beginnings and has been helping women ever since. Now, she's helped close to 250 of them. I asked her how many of those were non-white. Only 4. One of them was Kiki.
Emma, place this into kind of the broader perspective. Gambling in this country is obviously still a big thing, but is it on the rise?
It is on the rise. But actually what's rising fastest is online gambling of things like casinos, slots. Slots were Kiki's things. You know, back in Lisa's day when she was gambling, it was physical betting. She was going into casinos in real life, going into betting shops or whatever. This is slots. And what Kiki was saying, interestingly, is that she was holding it together for the outside world. You know, she'd still get dressed up, put her makeup on, and yet at home, when she was behind closed doors, she could not put her phone down. She'd go to the bathroom with it. She'd have a long charging cable so she could, in the bath, whatever it was, she just could not put it down because she was completely hooked, spinning, 10p, 20p.
Emma, just pause there for a second because this is probably an appropriate time to speak to Kiki herself. Kiki, thanks for talking to us. Just start by describing how you got into gambling.
I started gambling when I was 16, just scratch cards, and that kind of was the common theme. I only played scratch cards through my late teens and in my 20s. I started playing slots and bingo online in 2016.
For those who haven't played these slots online, what is it like? How much money were you spending?
I wasn't spending that much money because I didn't have that much money to spend. I had my favourite games, and when I was playing, it was the best path of escapism for me. I couldn't think or feel anything when I was gambling. And I think that's what made me want to keep on gambling, that complete escapism from anything that was going on in my life at the time.
Was it a rush? Clicking buttons on a laptop or tapping keys on a screen?
Yeah, when your numbers come in, you do get an adrenaline rush, you get excitement and want that feeling again.
When did you realise that this was perhaps not a fun recreational activity anymore, that it was becoming a bit darker?
The first glimpse I had of that was in 2016 after a miscarriage. That was the first time I thought I've got a problem here, and I put myself on Gamban and GamStop and things like that. But that didn't last for very long. I needed that buzz of winning, playing and putting real money into it, knowing you could get real money back. I needed that kind of fix from it. So I went back to gambling properly. I think it was 2022, 23 when there was kind of no return. There was no picking myself back up. I loved gambling for that escapism. I could play for days at a time. If I started gambling, I'd be gambling for 12 to 14 hours at the very least. It all depended on money, really. And if I'd won, then I could play longer. If I didn't, play shorter. If you didn't have the options to gamble, that brought in the desperation and the panic to get more money so that you could gamble.
If you're spending all your money on gambling, you weren't spending money on the things you probably should have been.
No, I wasn't. I was living on the bare minimum of everything. 1 meal a day. Very little gas, only having a couple of baths a week, if that sometimes, depending on how depressed I was at that point. And the only reason why my Wi-Fi bill and my electric got paid for was because I needed it to gamble. They were the only 2 bills that I kind of paid for on my phone bill because I could gamble through my phone bill. So they were the 3 things that I regularly paid because that's what helped fund my addiction.
What effect did all this have on your relationships?
I think it put a huge stress on my relationship that I was in at that time. And I stole money from that person and made a lot of promises to that person that I wouldn't do it again. I've got cross addictions, so I was taking drugs at the same time. So as soon as I would take cocaine, I'd gamble, and no matter how much I bent the promises, as soon as that happened, it was game over. So that put a lot of stress and strain on that relationship. Even though I paid the money back, it was just a consistent letdown, not being able to depend or rely on me at all when it came to money. And I lost my relationship with my daughter for 18 months because of it. She moved out when she was 15 and we didn't speak. And at the time, I was just so selfish. I was so fed up and so tired of things that had happened in my life, some traumatic events that had happened. And I just kind of gave up on being a mum. I gave up on participating as a member of society. I gave up on myself. I didn't have much left.
Did you see yourself as a gambling addict?
I knew I had a gambling problem. I don't think it was right till the very end that I saw myself as a gambling addict. I always fooled myself into thinking that I'd get it together eventually, because that had been the theme of my life. I had my bad points, but then I'd get it together and I'd start doing well again, and kind of ebbed and flowed. But this time round in 2023, I couldn't get back up again. It was just one very dark road. I did consider suicide many times, and I did attempt suicide. But I think that when it came to a head is when I went to the train station, and I thought that I was doing everyone around me a favour by choosing to end my life. But I felt a sense of responsibility that in my death I'd be causing other people a hell of a lot of trauma.
Why do you think it took you so long to reach out for help?
Years before that, I had Googled what is a gambling addict, and I didn't see any women. I didn't see people that were like me, in a sense, like low betters. I thought to be a gambling addict, you have to be rich, you have to have lots of money. And I didn't have a home to remortgage. I didn't have cars to sell. And so I thought, I'm just being attention seeker. I'm just being dramatic. I don't have a problem. I thought that I was very weak, and I thought that I was pathetic because I couldn't get a grip of the situation.
The statistics do appear to suggest that gamblers from ethnic minority backgrounds, from communities like yours, don't reach out for help in the numbers that perhaps white gamblers do. Why do you think that might be the case?
I think it's just how most of us are raised. We're taught from a young age I can only speak for myself, but I wasn't supposed to go and get therapy, seek outside help, tell other official people what was really going on. That's something you kept to yourself, especially being a parent. You don't want social services involved. You don't want your children taken. And I think that was one of my main reasons for not ever saying how bad things were, because I didn't want to put my child's life in jeopardy with social services, especially as I'm from a background of being in foster care myself as a child. So that was a really big fear of mine. Also shame and guilt, and not having that support. I think people see drugs and alcohol as a really serious addiction, and I don't think they see gambling addiction in the same way. It's something that people think you can control when you can't. I was completely powerless over my addiction. I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's how we're raised and what we're taught, especially being a black woman. You're expected to be very strong. You don't want to be seen as a bad mum. And those are the things that kept me from getting help for many, many years, even at desperate times when I wanted the help.
But you did get help. Tell me what life is like for you these days.
Oh, life's amazing today. I've got an amazing relationship with my daughter. We're best friends today, and I've made my amends to her, and she understands I did the best that I could with what I had at the time. And she's a very smart young lady and very open-minded to things that could happen in life. And I'm very grateful and lucky to have her as mine. I get to spend Christmas with her this year for the first time in a couple of years, which I'm ecstatic about. I get to help people today. I'm a peer aid mentor, somebody that helps people coming into recovery that suffer with gambling harm. And we help them to empower themselves, to give them the tools and what they need to make the changes that they want in their life. It's very fulfilling. I love doing it. I'm a volunteer and I just love the whole experience. I love the one-on-one sessions. I love helping with facilitating groups. It's an amazing thing to be part of, and I'm very proud to work with Bet No More in that area and being able to help other people in recovery and give back to what was so kindly given to me.
Let's bring Emma Birchley back in at this point. Emma, just having listened to Kiki's story, incredible and well done to her. But in your mind, what needs to happen more broadly so that others don't end up where she did?
I think that if you can get to the point where you're able to ring the gambling helpline, that is the bouncing off point for all sorts of different routes to therapy. But I think the main thing is it's raising awareness, isn't it? Because the more you talk about it, the more we become aware of it. There might be someone listening today who's thinking, well, actually, that's me. And maybe this is the moment that I do something about it and start that journey that Kiki was at this time 2 years ago.
Emma, many thanks. That's your lot for this edition of The Daily. You can hear more of Kiki's story over on the website, skynews.com. The Daily's back tomorrow.
The world is on the brink. Wars, contentious elections, disinformation spreading at warp speed, and Donald Trump at the center of all of it. But what does it mean for the rest of us? Every week on Pod Save the World, Tommy Vitor and I cut through the noise to explain how global power is shifting. No jargon, no homework, just clear, honest conversations about what's happening and why it matters. From breaking news to long-simmering international conflicts, we dissect it all with critical analysis and some jokes that will surely embarrass our children one day. Tune in to Pod Save the World every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts, or catch it on YouTube.